All right, all right. What's going on, everyone? Hey, just wanted to keep this nice and short and sweet. I have Will here, my business partner, and something we were just actually talking about a little bit ago, and what we could have done better from the start was actually paying attention to the risks that we were taking and actually analyzing and how we could start reducing those. So we want to keep this very short and sweet, but as put as much value and back behind from what we're giving here, and kind of just want to go through this and keep it again nice and short and sweet here. But I think the number one rule, just to get into this, and if you agree with this, will let me know, is never losing money, right? When any sort of business that you start, any sort of business that you're scaling, you need to be paying attention of what's coming in and what
And
and
what's
I
supposed to be coming in and coming out too. Like I think when we were starting, we had no numbers. So
Mhm.
find somebody that's in the industry that you want to go into. If it's short-term rentals, then find somebody that's actively doing short-term rentals that can look at your books and tell you, okay, are your estimates on track or are they completely off from where they should be? And then
Yep.
using software to kind of back it up for the area too. But
Yep.
yeah,
No, I like that. Yeah, and I think in these things that we're gonna kind of go through is like things that like popped up and it was like that aha moment, that we're like, wow, we need to start paying attention to this, or we really need to start going back and paying attention to to inventory, or who we're actually partnering with,
yeah,
and really taking a step back and realizing like, hey, at the end of the day, we are the professionals in this industry. And I think this goes to my first point, is never acting on other people's advice that
yeah.
have a side
We've
motive in your
lost.
action, and
To,
trust them to
to,
help you, but verify everything yourself.
to kind of elaborate on this one, we literally lost probably $100,000 this year alone just on that one point.
Yep.
So if that helps with gauging why, it's really important to like listen to other people that claim to be experts or whatever the case is, and hear their perspective. But I mean, also understand that every single person that's telling you something has a motivation behind it,
Mhm.
whether it's a good motivation or a bad motivation or purely selfish or to serve other people, whatever the case is, they have a motivation. So
Yep.
trying to figure out exactly what that motivation is going to really help you speed up the learning curve on if you can actually trust what they're saying or not. But at the end of the day, until you get going and really have a solid team, you need to be making all the research decisions on your own.
Yep.
But yeah,
No, that's a huge point. I think that's one of the first mistakes, that, and I wouldn't even call it a mistake, but it was just letting people tell us when they are specifically like someone in real estate, right? Like
Mhm.
everyone that thinks they're in real estate thinks they understand the short-term rental
Yeah,
industry, and it's like, no, it's not. I mean, that's a reason why me and you partner together, right? Will, like,
yeah,
I
seriously.
had I had this I had this very specific like understanding of short-term rentals and like the business aspect of things, and Will had like this just unbelievable knowledge in real estate, that I knew that like our two minds would be able to collaborate to like creating this overall experience and success in short-term rentals. So again, listen to people, but understanding who you're listening to and why, and take things that are given to you, but understand at the end of the day, for this first point, is that you're the professional and you should be making the commitment to what you feel is going to be right for you in your business.
Yeah.
So moving into the second point here, again, another important aspect, I think literally what's going on right now with us, with one of our clients, is only invest in areas where you're extremely positive that you'll make money until you can afford to take more risk with your money. I can specifically talk on behalf of the Canada deals that we had gotten into. Again, what Will was kind of talking about was one of our biggest expenses and risks that we've ever taken, that we've never back on. That's a whole nother story that we can go into another day. But at the end of the day, making sure that you're doing your part on, using B&B Vesta or AirDNA, and looking at what other short-term rentals in the area are performing, and how you can help increase that occupancy and revenue for your client and yourself and your property. You have
Yeah,
anything
and
to
I
add to
think
that?
with this stuff, guys, I would just write if you're not going to go into any sort of training, whether it's with us or with another company, I would just try to think of every single thing that would come up as expenses when you're looking at a specific market. Try to get as accurate as possible. So, ask people, get feedback, make a spreadsheet, honestly,
Mhm.
and then put it all in one place, and then see what the estimates are in the area, and then gauge whether or not that deal is going to work out.
Yep.
But things get more complicated as you scale. Like actually, I was making a post in the Facebook group about how we were actually accepting deals that were amazing in the being, but as our team grew and our infrastructure grew, those deals became less and less profitable, so that it
Mhm.
almost got to a point where it's not really worth the amount of effort that goes into that deal. So it's gauging that kind of stuff where, okay, this deal might be okay right now, but once I scale out to 50 units, the numbers probably won't even work if I have to hire one manager, or if my laundry bill goes up, or whatever the case is. So
Yep.
looking at that stuff long term is going to really help you guys out. And again, don't get too scared about doing your first deal. It's better to get started and be okay in terms of profit than to just not get started at all. Um, but
Yep.
yeah.
And that's what we're here for too, right? If you're watching this, that's in our Facebook group or wherever you're at watching this, this is where we dive into details on making sure that you're being most profitable and understanding the system and processes that can go into place. And I think this kind of ties into our next point, what even Will was talking about, is overstretching your expenses is dangerous. I mean, it's just very simple there. If you stretch yourself too thin and lose everything or your brand image, then you're going to have to start from scratch. So, understand what you can afford, when it comes to, VAs, when it comes to, laundromat services, when it comes to even cleaning expenses. You might have to start cleaning the first couple months before you can start to afford an actual quality cleaner, because there's a lot of shit cleaners out there. And your biggest, I think, asset to start, and that's going to fulfill that guest experience, is making sure the place is clean. So again, don't overstretch your expenses. Make sure you're doing everything yourself to start before you start to hire things out. And I'm not saying you go and do everything yourself, because there are some things when you're looking at numbers, right? You can hire out a property manager, you can hire out a cleaner, you can afford guesty up front if you do have 5+ properties to start. So you just need to make sure that you have an understanding again of the ins and outs.
Yeah, and I think for this stuff, when you're just starting out, if you're like thinking about getting your first unit or whatever it is, I would definitely keep some money back in the bank. Don't go all in so that you have to make your return in 1 or 2 months. I would, if you're going to buy anything, especially if you're buying something and it's seasonal, the market that you're in, make sure that you at least have a goose egg of reserves
Mhm.
to kind of help you in the learning phase, because
Yep.
it might take you, 2 to 4 months to start turning a profit, if you don't really know what you're doing. Ideally, you want to speed up that learning curve. But I think, one of the things that I see people do all the time is like they save all their money, and then they think that, they're going to make all of their money back in the first month of doing an Airbnb, but they list their home in the winter, or like at the beginning of winter, when a lot of Airbnbs in a specific area actually take losses during the winter. So
Mhm.
your expenses actually might go up, and it might not make enough money to keep it going every single month. So just understand what market you're in, and how the bell curve of revenue is going to affect your
Yep.
expenses
Yep.
on when you sign a
And,
deal.
and even with that, by the way, if you guys haven't looked at Will's latest Facebook post in the public group, you guys all have access to that. I know pretty much everyone that we're talking to. Literally, it goes into detail about why you should use QuickBooks and the importance of it. So that's just a whole another piece of value that you should actually read word by word and
Really
sentence by
boring.
sentence.
And I hate accounting stuff, guys. And I love QuickBooks if it tells you how valuable it
I'll tell
is.
you what,
Like
I'm starting to like it as well, to be
dude, I
honest.
love it. I skipped
Yeah.
all of my accounting classes, and somehow I still love
Well, they just
QuickBooks.
made it
But
too complicated. It's
yeah, it
like,
was too complicated, and I don't want to do that when a software can,
oh, you know what? That's why there's programs like this that we've created, for you guys,
exactly.
honestly.
There you go.
So, and then,
Gosh.
hey guys, the next one, keep track of inventory. What do I mean by that? There's a very detailed list that I can go into, which again, if you are inside of our program, you do have the full list of this. If not, and that's something that you're wanting to get your hands on, we'd be more than happy to get on the phone with you and talk to you on behalf of this. But that's mainly like your cleaning supplies. So your sheets, your towels, your wash rags, your soaps, your blankets, your pillows, that's keeping track of inventory. So when you do have a hiccup with a cleaner where they, specifically with us is like, hey, we don't have any sheets for today. It's like, I was just there and there was like 10 sets of sheets. What's going on? All right. Because you got to understand your cleaners do have other jobs that they're doing. So maybe they mix something up or whatever the case may be. So you just want to make sure that you have track of everything that you have purchased and put in that cleaning closet up to date.
Yeah.
And then if you lose anything or if something gets ruined, first of all, your cleaner should be taking pictures of those and sending those directly to you so you can charge the guest. But sometimes, again, there's things that come up where they don't notice. So you might have to, you might be dinged from that and have to go and purchase another set of towels or whatever the case may be. So again, keeping track of inventory there.
And then in terms of furniture too, understanding, with where you are buying furniture, understanding the depreciation of that and
Mm-hmm.
kind of like the lifespan of that piece of furniture, and then also saving, or at least accounting for the depreciation as it goes towards,
Mm-hmm.
the process, because stuff does get worn out, it does get ruined, and you do kind of have to account for that.
Yep.
Or else, long term, you're going to be really screwed once everything starts breaking,
Yep. Yeah.
and then
And
with
these are
this
things
stuff,
again
yeah,
that you can automate. This is like one of those tasks that you can delegate to your cleaners. We every 3 months we do a deep clean. And part of that deep clean, they're going into, furniture, they're going into dishes, silverware. What is it that we need to replace that's going to keep this overall 5-star cleaning and experience for our guests? So again, this isn't something that you have to do every 3 months. This might seem like a lot that we're given to you, or these specific parameters and details. But at the end of the day, there's certain things that you're already paying for that you can keep track or not keep track of. If that makes sense.
mhm.
So, and then the next one here is, if you don't know the numbers, then chances are you're losing money. I don't know how much more I can say. I'll read it again. If you don't know the numbers, then chances are you are losing money.
That's with everything. I mean, if you look at your own personal bank account, like, if you only cut out like the purchases above a couple $100, that's really not going to put that much of a dent in terms of your monthly spend. The real expenses are in the things that are the smaller charges that happen
Mhm.
every single week or every couple days or whatever the case is. Like it's, where you park, when you're visiting your units, or what type of soaps you're getting, what type
Mhm.
of towels you're getting, all that kind of stuff really has huge impacts. And if you're not tracking that, if you're not optimizing it, then you're probably not on a good track long term. Um,
Exactly.
but yeah, and again, we're all still learning this too. But I think the biggest thing is at least just understanding what exactly you're spending money on total,
Mhm.
um, instead of ballpark numbers. But
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, and then this last point here, and we'll keep it. That's what we just talked about, but it kind of ties in to the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth point is know who's coming in your doors. Okay, when you're talking about Airbnb, when you're talking about VRBO, unfortunately, Booking.com is not up to par with some of these other channel managers, but you can get a significant amount of bookings depending on your property, which that's a whole nother section that we talk about. But you should have a profile picture. All right, you should know their reasoning of travel, how many guests, and they should always have a 4.5-star rating or higher. And then obviously should have positive reviews from prior hosts. Okay. And the reason being for this is just the quality of the tenant or guest, whatever you want to call them. The lower quality guests that you get, the more issues you're going to have, the more risk you're going to have when it comes to the lower end individuals that are coming into your property.
And if somebody smokes weed the night of, the next guest has to get refunded a certain amount. So stuff like that adds up if you're relying on low cap rates. Also, your management expense is going to go up as well. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're at that point where you're hiring a property manager, if they're charging you, a surcharge to go at later hours to stop parties or whatever that is, if you're targeting a lesser end clientele that throws parties at your units all the time, it's going to cost so much more expensive
Mhm.
to account for that in terms of expenses than it would in traditional long-term rentals. Yeah.
Yeah, and in Airbnb specifically, I can tell you, they have a profile picture. If they don't, you can simply ask. And then your messages should literally include some sort of message that is specifically asking for how many guests, the reason I'm traveling. Because what happens is issues come up where they might put two guests when you have an occupancy of 6, and they might try bringing in 8, 10, 12 people. So it's always good to be proactive, because a lot of times they don't think what they're typing. They might put two guests, but then they might tell there's actually 6 people. So you just want to making sure that you're being proactive on the situation and having those messages on a systematical, like you can have them in a Word document, or you can have your VA send them, or you can have a software like Guesty that can do it for you already. And if you're not understanding exactly what we're talking about, we can dive deeper into this. But with Airbnb, they already do that for you. Okay. VRBO, you might have to actually ask. We just ask for a driver's license picture, and they'll send that to us. And the reasoning why we do that is we tell them it's just for the security of us, our homeowner, whoever else is around the property. So if something does happen, we know who is in, and we can, get down to the gist of that guest or whoever it is. So, but
Yeah,
yeah,
and
guys,
that stuff, like, to kind of, I don't want to completely take
no,
us
you're
off
right.
course, but that stuff is also really important in terms of when you're working with partners or clients. If they're like, your guests are also a representation of your brand in
Mm-hmm.
terms of a marketing and management company. And if every single person that you're bringing into the door, is, a crackhead, then of course they're not going to have a really good representation of your brand, versus if
Yep.
every single person that comes to your door is driving, a Porsche, or um, you know is extremely kind to everybody that's working there, and doesn't trash the hallways or smoke weed in the unit or do a music video in the lobby,
Yep.
like stuff like that. I know it sounds weird, but like, it does have an impact on your reputation, and it will minimize the amount of deals that they end up going to you for long term, if the only person that you bring in is somebody that just doesn't care about the property.
Yep.
Yeah, hopefully that
Yeah. So
helps.
again, guys, just kind of tying it back to number one rule: never losing money. But of course, if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to myself and Will, and we would be more than happy to help out. Thanks,
Yep.
guys.
Adios.